Welcome to Short Scary Stories, Episode 9. Min waited for me after my friend's shift by binchlauren on Creepy Encounters on Reddit. I, female 23, staying with my friend, also female 23, for a couple of weeks in the town I grew up in. She works at a restaurant. Without giving away too many details about it, it's a local pizza place with a river nearby, a movie theater, restaurant, boutique. We entered through the parking garage on the bottom floor, which has 3 stories, both elevators and stairs. This is important. Her shift is about 6 hours, so I decided to do some shopping, listen to music, and walk around before eating at the restaurant my friend works at. And I was sitting at the bar in the corner alone, listening to music. A bigger man approached me. He had a security guard beanie on. It was incredibly dirty and tattered up. He was muttering, and his eyes were barely open. What I got from his muttering was, I like your, is anyone sitting here? But keep in mind, this was all incredibly muttered. But I'm just guessing from what he was trying to say. All of this was said, he was switching back and forth between looking at my eyes and staring at my chest. I told him multiple times I couldn't understand what he said. After a bit and back and forth, I put my headphones back around my neck, and he left me alone. I told my friend about what happened immediately. I tried to shake it off, but hoping it was just an isolated incident. If this story ended here, I wouldn't be writing about it, unfortunately. About an hour later or so, I see someone approaching the bar out of my left corner of my eye, and I felt their eyes on me. I didn't look. Somehow I knew it was him. But somehow I knew it was him. My heart started beating really fast, and I texted my friend. I told her I felt really sketched out. I wanted to believe that it was just a misunderstanding, and was just letting my anxiety get the best of me, but I couldn't shake that feeling. 30 minutes or so later, she gets off, and we walk towards the parking garage stairs to get into her car. I saw him sitting on the bench, waiting for me. The benches aren't super close to the elevators. They're closer to the restaurant, if anything. The second I spotted him, my blood ran cold. He saw us walking towards the stairs to the parking garage, and he started running towards us. I was face to face with him by this time. We got to the top of the stairs. We booked it back to the restaurant and used the employee elevator to get to her car, and an employee escorted us to her car as well. The employee told us that there was a lot of cases of homeless people who walked around the restaurants. So I presume he was homeless and he was just walking in and out of restaurants until he saw me. I'm incredibly thankful that I trusted my gut and that I saw him when I did. I didn't know what would have happened if I didn't see him first, but I really don't want to find out. This story is by Plastic Reflections 40 on Reddit from No Sleep. My brother went missing, but something found me. Back in 1992, my brother Boone went missing. Our family has always lived in North Dakota, but Boone had always dreamed of leaving. In 1990, Boone was accepted to the University of Miami. His freshman year, he met a couple of good friends, and they all moved into a beach bungalow. Their first summer, he had been living there ever since. In late August of 1992, Boone called home and I answered it. It was around 1 a.m., and he sounded frantic. He said there was a hurricane about to hit, and it was going to be bad. And he was leaving to come home. He said something was wrong, and he could feel it, building around him in the air, and I told him the plan. I told him to meet me at the first Greyhound bus station, past the Florida-Georgia border, and we could drive home together. I wanted to make sure he was safe, because he was really scaring me. Boone said he would call home again soon, and he got to the bus station. I told him I was already en route, so just let Mom know he was safe and waiting for me. I packed a small bag and cash, left my mom a note, and biked to the bus station. I was really freaked out though. My brother was a dreamer and creative. He wasn't one to panic or really to frighten easily. I got to the bus station and took note of the people there immediately. Only 4 others, 2 pairs of males and their female companions. The closer pair was to the right, in the front row behind the driver. The woman looked frightened. The man looked as if he was trying to keep his demeanor calm. The other couple was even more strange. They sat towards the back, on the left side. The man was sleeping against the window. But the woman had giant dark eyes. They were glassy and shiny. She looked as if she had been interrupted from her crying over a funeral wake. Her mouth was open, slack-jawed, and I could see too many teeth. She wouldn't take her eyes off of me, and I could almost feel them poking the back of my head as I sat down 2 rows behind the first couple. The bus took off, and I tried not to think of anything but my brother, and the strange lady staring at me. I pulled out a book and started to read it. I didn't hear the first plinking sound until we were in South Dakota a few hours later. It was faint over the background noise, but it was a distinct plastic on floor plink, plink, plink. As day broke, we took our first stop. I decided to get off the bus and buy a couple of snacks, to relieve myself in the bathroom as well. I didn't turn around when I stood up, just exited. When I returned to the bus, I took a deep breath and stepped on, hoping that the woman had fallen asleep, or better yet, gotten off. No, instead her companion seemed to have disappeared as well as the other couple. It seemed as though the woman hadn't even moved, but she just stared at me. I took my spot where the other couple had been sitting before, and tried to forget that she was still on the bus. Plink, 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 plink. The noise seemed to go on for hours, like an irregular leaky faucet dripping pebbles onto linoleum. When we reached Tennessee, she got off the bus, but as she passed me, she touched my shoulder and said, "Not yet." I couldn't even bring myself to even glance at her. I was trying not to shake out of my skin. Her voice was so hollow and raspy, it was like it belonged to a broken drive-thru speaker. She smiled and exited, though I thought she might break her neck to continue staring at me as she left. As soon as the bus lurched forward, I got up and went to where the woman had been sitting. I looked down and saw a pile of human and animal teeth. The man, who I thought had left the bus previously, was slumped in the seat, almost falling forward onto the floor. When we got to the next bus station, the driver called the police and I was transferred to a new bus. The whole situation was very unsettling to me. When I got to the final Greyhound station in Georgia, I looked around for my brother. His car wasn't there, and I didn't see him anywhere. I called home with a payphone, and my mom answered, and I asked if Boone had called, and she said no, he hasn't, so I just sat there and waited. I waited a full day at the station. He never showed. I called home again, and Mom said she still hadn't gotten a call from him either. I called Boone's house, and the line just rang, and rang. I broke down crying on the bench. I got back home, and Mom told me that she had some news. She had seen that Hurricane Andrew had swept through South Florida and ravaged the state. There was deaths and many reported missing. My mom had called the school when they reopened for classes to see if Boone had showed back up, which they told us no, he didn't. We then called the police and filed a missing persons report. My mom and I went down to Florida together the next week to help search for Boone. And the others, including his roommates, we'd never found anyone, not even Boone. We still don't know what happened to him that day. His car was never seen, and because his roommates were missing too, we didn't know. We could never figure out where he was last. In fact, most of their home had been destroyed. Most of Boone's personal items were either swept away or he had taken them with him. Since then I had suffered debilitating nightmares that make sleep basically impossible. I have flashbacks of seeing that woman, and the dead man, and Boone, the destruction the hurricane caused. It comes back and hits me whenever I'm awake. I spent the first year after Boone went missing in bed, hardly eating, almost catatonic. But as time marched on, the image and nightmares slowly, and I mean very slowly, started to fade, and I could begin to recall the better times I had shared with Boone. Today I had visited the headstone my mom had made last year in honor of Boone. It was early evening, and I remember as I walked up to the headstone, I could see a stack of something. It wasn't there before. As I got near, I pushed aside the flowers and noticed it was a pile of teeth. As I examined further, I noticed animal teeth there as well. I stood up, and the woman from the bus more than 30 years ago was standing in front of me. She was exactly the same as I remembered her from all my nightmares, and all she said was, "Soon." This story is from nadjacolette on Reddit. Let's Not Meet. a stranger tries to steal my dog. This happened Christmas 2019, I, female 26, and it sticks with me till this day. I thought about sharing my story many times. I never was sure that it was scary enough. I guess you decide. My then boyfriend, now husband, and I decided to meet for dinner at a Christmas market here in Switzerland. He had picked up our dogs from doggy daycare, and I would get them after work. Some things that are good to know. At this point, we had our dog for about a year. He's called Bean. He's a medium-sized dog, and before he came to Switzerland, he was a street dog in Italy. He was about 2.5 years old at the time. He loved and still loves to get all the attention he can. Also, Christmas markets are incredibly busy, especially after work. People will meet there with friends to eat dinner and drink milled wine. When we got to the Christmas market, we realized that it was way too busy to walk through with a dog, and I set my boyfriend off to get my favorite street food, Millowok. I waited at the edge of the market with Bean. Bean likes to greet everyone who looks at him, and by that point I had gotten used to talking with strangers because my dog wanted to meet them. So I wasn't too concerned at first when a dude came up to me. Full transparency, I don't remember word for word what he said. I'm not even sure what language he was happening in. I do remember that Bean was happily greeting the guy, trying to stand against him and licking his hand. The guy asked for his name and what breed he is. And I told him Bean is a pinscher mix, that when the situation started to turn. The man insisted that he must be a banshee. How could I say he's a pinscher? All of a sudden, he switched. There's no better way to explain it. He grabbed Bean's leash and said, "I go now." And he tried to walk off with my dog. Thankfully, I had a firm grip on the leash. I was incredibly confused and frustrated and stammered that he could not take my dog. He was increasingly more angry every second that I didn't let go of the leash. I loudly told the man to leave me alone, and Bean started to bark at the man. I've never seen Bean this angry and scared at the same time. Thankfully, the man let go of the leash and slipped into the crowd. I was left standing there dumbfounded and with a mess of a dog. Bean was barking and shaking, so I knelt down to calm him down, holding him and talking to him. My boyfriend was still somewhere in the crowd waiting for our food. After a while, a woman walked up to me and told me not to put my heel to the floor, as she had just seen someone put a firecracker there. I don't know the name of this firecracker. It's like a small thing that you usually throw at the floor to make a boom sound when on impact. Someone had put it under my heel of my shoe so it would explode when I put my heel down. I don't know what's worse, that some guy tried to steal Bean, or it's someone else who saw a distressed dog and thought, wow, let's scare that dog a bit more. I think the worst thing for me was, apart from that woman who warned me, no one helped me when I was harassed by the weird guy. I even loudly told him to go away, and there were other people standing very close just watching. Bean was the one who scared off the guy in the end. Thankfully, the events of that evening had no lasting impact on Bean. He still loves to greet strangers. I still remember it and don't think I will ever forget it. Thank you all so much for watching today's video, and a huge thank you to everyone who shared their amazing stories for me to read. Your support and encouragement mean the world to me. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more of my content, and don't forget, don't shoot the messenger.